Okay, Erev Tov, good evening, everyone. Tonight we continue to discuss about key topics about going to a minyan, especially if you're gonna show up late. Okay, we're going to speak a little bit about there's maybe about 2 or 3 topics about coming late to the Bet Knesset that we're going to discuss tonight, which includes if I'm in the middle of the Amidah while the Chazan is up to something else, what can I respond to? Now, I know that if we want to talk about coming late to Bet Knesset, that could be a shiur of its own, just like talking about how to navigate things and when you should do what. But we're going to try to stay as much as we can focused on the topics of the Gemara, because again, like how to navigate when you come to Bet Knesset late, that's a lot. We're going to stay focused on the daf, but hopefully I'll touch some other topics as we do that. All right, so let's get started. Gemara Masechet Berachot of Chaf Aleph Amud Bet 21 2. Just before we start, I have a question. How many people do we need for a minyan? 10 men, right? How do we know? Anyone know what the source is? Okay, Avraham Avinu asked not to destroy the city of Sodom, and he stopped at 10. Okay, negotiated down to 10. So that could be, you see the number 10 there. You're saying Korach. So you say Sodom, you say Korach. Everyone talks about everyone that gets destructed. Okay, fine, very good. So Korach. What about Korach? There's something about Korach. There's 250 men in Korach's group. So how do we get to a minyan of 10? You're right, by the way. It's related to Korach. But there's more to it. The answer of Abraham and Sodom is not going to come up in our Gemara. And it doesn't come up in Gemara Megillah either. There's another Gemara that we're going to see tonight that has to do with the source of a minyan of 10. We're going to see that tonight. We're going to learn about different things having to do with the minyan, with the Chazara, of the Amidah. So let's get started, okay? We're starting on Chaf Aleph Amud Bet 21A. If you are, sorry, B, 21B. If you're looking at the art scroll, it's 21B1. Okay, 21B1 in the art scroll. Sorry, left column, first break. Amar Rav Huna. Amar Rav Huna. I'm going to share screen. Let's go. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna teaches us the following. Anichnas the Bet Knesset. Someone enters the Bet Knesset, enters the Knesset. Umatzah Tzibur mitpalalim, and you find that the Tzibur already started praying. Okay, it happens. It happens. Shacharit, you come a few minutes late, 20 minutes late or something, and they already started Amidah.
3 minutes late.
Yeah, depending on some minyanim, 20 minutes late, they're gone already. You could just go straight to breakfast if you want. Yeah. But it's like, let's say Arvit. Let's say you 5 minutes late in Arvit, they could already be in Amidah. So Anichnas the Bet Knesset u'matzah tzibur shemitpalalim. Mitpalalim here is specifically saying they're praying with the Amidah. Now you have to ask the question of, should I start the Amidah? Right? Can I start yet? Let's imagine that it's not like you walk in and you want to know of like, do I go straight into Amidah? Let's say like you're building up, you're a little bit behind, you're lagging behind, or let's say it's Arvit. You want to know, Arvit's not a good example because we're going to have a Chazara. So let's say it's Mincha, right? Mincha, you go with Asher, you go straight into Amidah. So you go to Mincha Minyan and you see that they already started. What should you do? Should you start your Mincha? Should you already start saying HaShem Sefatai Tiftach? So you tell me, Mincha is called for 1:30. You walked in at 1:32. You see everyone is chuckling. What do you do? Yeah. You start with Amidah. Go ahead. You start with Amidah. Okay. Anyone would wait? What if you would walk in at 1:35?
It depends when they're going to get to the Kedushah.
It depends when they're going to get to Kedushah. Okay, very good. So now Nick is saying...
and how fast you pray.
You have to do some calculations now. It's not just that you always start. It depends on whether you can be up to something by a certain time, right? That's what he's saying. On the Kedushah, he said, how fast you pray. So let's see what the Gemara says. So, sorry? You don't always know. It's 1:35. Did they start 5 minutes ago? Or were they running late and maybe they just started right now? Maybe you could start peeking over some people's shoulders to see where they're up to in their Sidur. So let's see what the Gemara says. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna tells us, Hanichnas Bet Knesset, you enter the Bet Knesset, u'matzah tzibur shemitpalalim. You see the minyan is praying Amidah. Im yachol lehatchil veligmor. If you can start your Amidah and finish your Amidah Ad shelo yagia shaliach tzibur lemodim, before the Chazan does his Chazara and gets to Modim, which how many minutes deep into Chazara would you say Modim is? 4 minutes deep. Okay, that's a good approximation.
7 minutes.
So let's say your Amidah is about 6 minutes. Let's say your Amidah takes 5 minutes, and you're saying you have 4 minutes from the time that he starts until he does the Modim. Let's say you see he's taking his 3 steps back. You see, so now you already have a sense. The Chazan is taking 3 steps back. I basically got 4 minutes and 10 seconds until he gets to Modim, and I know my Amidah is 5 minutes. I can't make it in time. So this is what he's saying. Now, I know there's a lot of unknowns here, but let's just get the rules. The rules are, if I could finish my Amidah before the Chazan gets to Modim of his Chazara, Yitpalel, then go ahead, start. Okay? So Joe, you walked in, you said you're going to start. One thing is, can you be done with your tefillah before the Chazan gets his Chazara Modim? Okay? Ve'im lav, but if you don't have enough time to be able to be done by the time he gets to Modim, al yitpalel, don't pray. Okay? So here's the calculation that he says. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi Omer, there's a machloket. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, no, that's not the calculation. If you can start your Amidah and finish your Amidah, before he gets to Nagdishach, before he gets to Kadosh, before he gets to the Nagdishach, Yitpalel, then you could pray. But if not, Al Yitpalel, don't start. Oh, okay. So here's what we're learning. There's 2 opinions here, Rav Huna and Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. Let's start with Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi because I think it's clearer to understand how long does it take from the time the Chazan starts HaShem Tiftach until he gets to Nagdishach? Less than a minute, right? Or you want to say 45 seconds? Let's say 45 seconds. So now what Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi is saying is, if they just started the Amidah, that that like you have plenty of time, that you'll be done with Oseh Shalom before they get to Nagdishach, so go ahead, start praying Amidah. Gabriel, for the cases you walk into Mincha, 2 minutes late, you see everyone struggling. What do? Do you start praying? So this is a machloket between Rav Huna and Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. They both agree that you shouldn't just start right away. You have to do some calculation. Your calculation is, if I start now, will I catch Nagdishach? That's what Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says. And Rav Huna says, if I start now, will I catch Modim? Which gives you a lot more time. Okay? Now, what we're going to see is just trying to put some numbers to it. If it takes the Chazan 45 seconds to get there, and my Amidah takes me 5 minutes, and I see the page of the Chazan is on Sim Shalom. So what does that mean? That means he's going to be done in the next minute. And then 45 seconds later is 2 minutes. I need 5 minutes. Nagdishach is going to be in 2 minutes. I'm going to miss it. So what do? You wait. That's what he's saying here. He's saying don't pray. Now what should you do? We're going to see what Shulchan Aruch tells us what you should do. But now you're saying you shouldn't just go straight into praying. Why? Because you're going to miss Nagdishach. Rav Huna says it's fine if you miss Nagdishach. It's just that you can't miss Modim. Okay, before we discuss this machloket, what is it about Modim that's so special? Okay, there's 2 Modims. So this could be one explanation, that why is it so important that I'll be done before Modim is over? Because that's how I could get to say Modim D'Rabbanan, the secondary Modim. Okay? Now, Ilan, that's a very good suggestion. Tosafot says that's not the case, though. And it's going to make a big difference as to the reason why. Tosafot explains the reason is, actually, I think Rashi explains this also. The reason, it's Tosafot. וטעמה לפי שצריך לשוח עם הציבור שלא יראה ככופר במי שהציבור משתחווים לו. Tosafot tells us a very simple reason. He says, you know why? Because what happens at Modim, you're right. Everyone says Modim. So what is everyone doing when they say the word Modim? They're bowing. But if I'm in the middle of my Amidah, I'm not allowed to bow. At certain points, you're not allowed to bow if I'm not allowed to bow. Remember, we said that there are certain places where you're supposed to bow. I actually think we had a whole shiur about this. You bow like a snake and you come up like a rod, or whatever. You bow like a rod, you come up like a snake. And there's 5 places where you bow. You bow at the beginning of Magen Avraham, HaShem Sefalei Tiftach V'Yagel Berachot HaShem, at the end of Magen Avraham. Then you bow again at the beginning of Modim, at the end of Modim, and Oseh Shalom and Ramav. So it's unless it's one of those spaces, you can't bow. So what's going to happen? Everyone in the whole Tzibur, 250 people, all say Modim, and I'm standing straight up. So that's why, if you're not going to be done by the time you get to Modim, Tosafot explains what's going to happen is everyone's going to be bowing, you're going to be standing upright, and it looks like everyone is bowing to Hashem, and you're saying, I'm not bowing to him. That's what it's going to look like. That's why Rav Huna says, you got to be done before you get to Modim. Okay? There's a lot of caveats on this, but first I want to get through the flow of the Gemara. Then we're going to talk about all of these caveats. Okay? So far, so good? You walk in late for Mincha. We're starting, you see the Chazan already started the Mincha prayer. Mr. Elazdi, what do? Mincha started, you walked in, you don't know what to do. Should I start? Yeah, they already started. You see everyone is just like this. You immediately start. So that is one option, but the Gemara is telling us, no, you first have to do a calculation. Because you have to keep in mind that there's a Chazarat HaShatz coming up. And you need to be available for that Chazarat HaShatz. And there's 2 opinions. One opinion says you need to be available to say Nakdishach. And if you see that the Chazan is right now up to Oseh Shalom Ramav and you start immediately, you're going to miss the Kedushah. You're going to miss Nakdishach. That's one. Or the second opinion is no, so the first opinion, or actually it's really the second opinion, Rabbi Shimon Levi says you could only start if you know that you'll be done before the Chazan gets to Nakdishach, Kedushah. And Rav Huna says you could only start if you know that you'll be done before the Chazan's Modim. Good? Let's see. First, the Gemara says, why are the 2 of them arguing? What are they arguing about? They both agree that you need to bow for Modim, and they both agree that you need to say Nakdishach. So why are they arguing? Here's why. Mor savar yachid omer Kedushah, mor savar en yachid omer Kedushah. You know why? Because Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi holds, like how we hold, that you can't say Nakdishach on your own if you're in the middle of the Amidah. Let's say I'm in the middle of my Amidah. Okay? I'm up to the Beracha of Refainu HaShem v'nerafeh, She'enu v'nimasheh. All of a sudden I hear Nakdishach. And I'm in the middle of Refainu HaShem v'nerafeh. So what does Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi say you have to do? He says, you can't say anything. You have to stop. So I end up losing my Nakdishach. That's why he requires you to be done before Nakdishach. But Rav Huna says, if you're in the middle of your prayer and the Chazan gets up to Nakdishach, wherever you are, you could just answer Nakdishach. So if you're in the middle of Etsemach David Avdecha Menat Tasmiach Nakdishach Menar Yisach, yeah, it's fine, go ahead. So since Rav Huna says that an individual could say Nakdishach wherever he's up to, so he doesn't require you to be done with your Amidah by Nakdishach. Why? Because you could just say Nakdishach. That's why his threshold is if you could be done by Modim. Whereas Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, no, you can't say Nakdishach in the middle of your prayer. Since you can't say Nakdishach in the middle of your prayer, you have to be done with your prayer before Nakdishach. That's what the Gemara here is saying. Okay? One more time. What are they arguing about? The first opinion, Rav Huna says that an individual is allowed to say Kedushah, the Nakdishach, wherever he's up to, and therefore he doesn't have to be done before Nakdishach, because he could just say it. And the second opinion, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says that no, an individual cannot say Kedushah on his own, and since he cannot say Kedushah on his own, that's his benchmark. He has to be done with his prayer before the Chazan gets up to Nakdishach to be able to answer Nakdishach. Okay? Now, once we talk about this idea of Nakdishach and a minyan, we're going to talk about the source of a minyan. V'chen amar Rav Ada bar Ahava. Rav Ada bar Ahava says the following. Minayin she'en hayachid omer Kedushah. How do you know that an individual, a single person, cannot say Nakdishach on his own? If you're praying at home on your own, you can't say Nakdishach. Or if you're praying your Amidah in the middle of your tefillah, as we're saying, is like you're not up to the same place where the Chazan is up to, you can't say Nakdishach. Why do you need a minyan for Nakdishach? Said another way, what's the source of a minyan? This is the question I started with. So we got an answer of Avraham Avinu and Sodom, we got an answer of Korach. Let's see what the Gemara says. How do you know an individual cannot say Kedushah on his own? Shneimar, as the Pasuk says, V'nikdashti b'toch b'nei Yisrael. It's a pasuk in Emor. that says, don't desecrate the name of God. Instead, you should sanctify the name of God. V'nikdashti means sanctify my name. Betoch bnei Yisrael, amongst the children of Israel, amongst the bnei Israel. When you do Kedushah, when you say v'nikdashti, when you are being when you're sanctifying God's name, when you're doing nagdishach, you have to do it betoch bnei Israel, amongst bnei Israel. Okay, so what we've done so far is we said that when you say Devarim Shebi Kedushah, when you're saying Nagdishach or other things about Kedushah, you need to do it amongst a group of Bnei Israel. Okay, but who said that's 10? Maybe that's 2, right? 2 is more than 1, so maybe 2 is enough. Oh. So the Gemara says, Kol davar shebi Kedushah lo yeh pachot me'asara. Anything, any expression of sanctity, of Kedushah, you need at least 10. My mashma. How does one apply the other? It says betoch, amongst the Bnei Israel. How does that get you to 10? That just gets you to more than 1. The Tana Rabnai, Achua de Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabnai taught the following explanation. He was the brother of Rabbi Chia bar Abba. And he says, Atya toch, toch. It says that v'nikdashti betoch b'nei Israel. When you do Kedushah, when you do Nagdishach, when you say Kadosh, 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 you have to be betoch b'nei Israel. Betoch means amongst b'nei Israel. There's another place in the Torah where it uses betoch. And let's see that betoch, what's the context? Because that might give us a clue. Maybe that's why over here it says toch and over there it says toch. Atya toch, toch. The word toch is used twice. Andy, what's it called when you use the same word in 2 places? Gezerah shava, exactly correct. It says betoch over here. You do a Kedushah, you need toch. So it says toch somewhere else. What does it say? Kitivach, it says here, v'nikdashti betoch b'nei Israel. When you do Kedushah, it has to be amongst b'nei Israel. Uchtivatam, and it says by Korach, right? It says by Korach, hibadelu mitoch ha'edah hazot. Separate yourself from this, from amongst this people, from this bad people. Separate yourself from this edah. How do they translate edah? Congregation. Okay. Okay, very good. Malahalan asara, afkan asara. Just as over there by Korach is 10, so to here by Nagdishach is 10. Okay, very good. I'll just 1 second. I'll get up to that. So what happens is we're using Gezerah Shava. It says the word toch by Nagdishach, Nikdashti. It uses the word toch by the story of Korach. After the story of Korach, when people are complaining and saying you killed them to Moshe and Aaron, Hashem tells Moshe and Aaron, separate yourself from amongst this congregation, and I'm going to kill them. You get away from them, I'm going to kill them. Okay? And over there, it uses the word toch, and it also uses the word edah, and the Gemara says, just as over there is talking about 10, so too over here is talking about 10. Okay? Our Gemara is incomplete. There's one more link in the chain that our Gemara does not include, and there's the Gemara Masech Megillah Chav Gimel spells this out. For some reason, our Gemara leaves it out, and according to Mesorah Shas, there's like a text error here. It's taught in shorthand, and there's something missing. Here's what's missing. There's one more section. You need one more link in this chain, and that is the story of the Meraglim. What happens in the story of the Meraglim? When there's 12 spies that go, 10 of them come back with a bad report, and Hashem is furious, and he tells them that Ad matay la'edah hara'ah hazot. This congregation is terrible. Okay? And he uses the word edah. And the word edah is referring to who? To the 10 spies. 10 out of 12 spies. So here is the link. We use the word toch by Nagdishach. Then by Korach, it uses the word mitoch ha'edah. So toch is connected to edah. And then the word edah is used by the Meraglim with the 10 spies that were wicked. So what you end up having is really from toch, you get to edah, and from edah, you get to the Meraglim. Okay? It's a trifecta. Exactly. It's a double Gezerah Shava. It's a Gezerah Shava linked to a Gezerah Shava by transition. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. This is a transitional Gezerah Shava. I really don't know if they have more of these. There definitely are more of these, but the reason why it's more than a Hekesh is because it's using same words in different places. Now, I think in diagrams, and I just quickly looked at Microsoft Whiteboard, and they had a diagram here. It's not the nicest, cleanest thing here, but I did my best here. You take blue and yellow. What color do you make? Green. Okay, you see, there's thoughts to this. I have the color of the circles are blue and orange. I didn't get to pick that, but I don't know the Chavod, the Mets or the Knicks or whoever's your favorite Islander, something. So here, on one hand, we have V'nikdashti. This Nikdashti, you guys could see this. Can I make this font bigger? I'm sure I can, but I ain't got no time for that. So V'nikdashti, Nikdashti is the pasuk that says about sanctifying Hashem's name. It says V'nikdashti betoch b'nei Yisrael. It uses this word toch. And then our Gemara tells us, and in Korach it says Hibadalu mitoch ha'edah. Okay, but our Gemara is incomplete because you need one more, which the Gemara in Megillah does, and it says by the Miraglim, it says edah. Now you know about Miraglim that is 10. So what you're doing is edah is 10. So here it says mitoch ha'edah, and that must mean toch is referring to an edah, which is 10. And over here it says V'nikdashti betoch b'nei Israel. So it must be referring to 10. This is a chain, a transitional Gezerah Shava in the Torah that you see for the source that Kedushah, V'nikdashti, Nakdishach needs to have 10. This is obvious. This is not the only source. There's also a tradition that we have that you need to have a minyan. You have this idea of Avraham Avinu with Sodom asking for a minyan. And there's other sources as well. But this is the source brought down in the Gemara. So this source of Nikdashti, Toch HaEdah, Edah by Meraglim gets you 10 for Nikdashti, and that's why you have a machloket. In our case, you have Rabbi Shua ben Levi saying you can't say Nakdishach on your own. And that's why, if you're going to start the Amidah, you can't just stop wherever you are in the middle to say Nakdishach. Once you start your Amidah in prayer, you're focused on your Amidah prayer, and you can't say Nakdishach because you're not connecting to the rest of the Kahal. Okay? Question. He agreed. He says, okay, very good question. Let's see if someone can think of something. Why is Rav Huna saying it's fine for you to say Nakdishach if you're in the middle of Rifa'inu?
Because maybe the Chazan doesn't have you in mind. I mean, he doesn't have like the Kahal in mind.
Okay. Let's say he does have me in mind.
You're not saying it alone. You're still saying it in minyan.
There you go. What is Rav Huna saying? Rav Huna is saying is, you're telling me I have to do it with a minyan. I'm doing it with a minyan. The Chazan is saying it, and I'm saying it with him. I'm not saying I'm going to say Nakdishach in my bedroom. What Rav Huna is saying is, when you are in the middle of your prayer, wherever you are, just stop and say it with him. And you say, you need to have 10. I'm saying it with the minyan. The whole minyan, there's 200 people saying it at the same time. I'm not saying it on my own. So even Rav Huna that says you're allowed to say it in your own Amidah, he's saying only if you're saying it together with a minyan. Now, Tomer is making a very good point of what's halacha l'ma'aseh. Tomer, we're going to get into that to say the halacha is actually not like Rav Huna. Rav Huna says you're allowed to say it if you're in the middle of your prayer. You're allowed to say it wherever you are in your prayer. You're allowed to say because you're saying it with a minyan. But we're not going to hold like that. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is how we hold that you are not allowed to interrupt your individual prayer to say Kedushah. You're not allowed to. So what are you supposed to do? The answer is you're supposed to just stop and listen to him, and he needs to have you in mind. That means when you are a Chazan, and we're going to see Shulchan Aruch in a second, when you are a Chazan, anyone here Chazan? You're Chazan? Andrew, you're Chazan? No? You got to start being Chazan. So now here's something tip to keep in mind when you're Chazan. When you're Chazan and you are saying the Nakdishach, what do you have to do, Tomer? You have to have everyone in mind. If there's anyone that right now is going to be listening to me and he can't say the Nakdishach now because he's in the middle of his prayer, like we hold like Rabbi Shua ben Levi that he's not allowed to say the Kedushah, so what is he going to do? He's just going to stop and listen to my beautiful voice. So while he's listening to my beautiful voice, I have to have intention that I'm saying this Kedushah for him for him to fulfill his obligation because he can't say the words, so he's just going to be listening to me. So I have to have it in mind. This is very important that if you're a Chazan and you're saying Kedushah, you should have whoever cannot say it, they will be listening to you, and you have in mind to fulfill their obligation for them. Okay? Good. Very good. We're going to see Shulchan Aruch and recap all of these halachot in a few moments. But here's what we're saying. We're saying, I come up into the Bet Knesset, Mincha is at 1:30, I walk in at 1:33. I don't know exactly where they're up to, and I look over one of their shoulders. Okay? What calculation am I trying to make? Let's review. What calculation am I trying to make? Very good.
See yours before they get up to Kedushah.
Very good. According to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, you are saying, can I start my Amidah and finish the Amidah and squeeze it in before the Chazan gets up to Kedushah? Which doesn't give you that much time. Well, it depends. If they just started this second, I have time. But if they're almost done, I don't have that much time. But Andy, what's the other opinion? Very good. And what does he say?
It says you have to finish before they get up to Modim D'Rabbanan.
Very good. You have to finish before they get up to Modim D'Rabbanan. Why? Do you remember why? What does Tosafot tell us?
Bow.
Very good. Because you have to bow. And if you are in the middle of your prayer, you're not allowed to bow during other parts of your prayer. You're only allowed to bow at the beginning of the first bracha, at the end of the first bracha, beginning of Modim, end of Modim, and Oseh Shalom. And so if I'm in the middle of Rifa'enu, I'm not allowed to just bow wherever I want. So what ends up happening is everyone is bowing. I'm not bowing. It's a big problem. Because then it's going to seem like I don't bow when everyone else does. Yes, question.
Might sound stupid. What if you time the bow? Like a different bow?
It's not stupid at all. When you get into the world of calculation, you're saying, I want to super calculate. Okay, so what do you want to calculate?
Bow?
There's a bow at the beginning of the first bracha, end of the first bracha, beginning of Modim, end of Modim, and end of Oseh Shalom. Okay, so what do you want to do?
So, three in the middle, or even, I guess, the other one. Can you time the bow? Can you bow?
Oh, okay. Using a finance term, Richard wants to know if your bows are fungible. You know what fungibility means? If you could exchange one for the other. Can I bow for Magen Abraham during everyone else's Modim? Because you're telling me the whole issue is what? The whole issue is people are going to see me. It's optics. It's not that I have to say Modim D'Rabbanan. This is why Tosafot's so important. It's not that I have to say Modim D'Rabbanan. If you would have said, oh, when everyone else is saying Modim, you have to respond Modim, that's one thing. But that's not what Tosafot's telling me. Tosafot's telling me the whole reason is because optics. So if optics, then all I got to do is time a bow, any one of my 5 bows, fungibility of bows. Is that allowed or not? Believe it or not, this is exactly what Tosafot tells us. Not just that, what Tosafot, yeah, so we're going to see what Tosafot says. I'm going to read it for you. What? Say it again.
Some people are that good.
You could wait a little bit.
Yeah.
He's almost at Modim and you're still in the beginning or whatever it is.
But he's down. Everyone's down.
You're bound.
So let's say, okay, here, I got it. Elon is saying is like, what is your first bracha, like 15 minutes long, that you're going to start your first bracha before, and then like you're going to use your Magen Avraham bracha by Modim, like what are you doing here? So what is it? Okay, so very good. Very good. So here you go. Richard's giving a very simple example. What if we're both starting HaShem Sefilai Tiftach at the same time? I see him taking his 3 steps back, and I'm going to say, I'm literally going to jump on the bandwagon. I'm going to start with the same second with him. I'm going to say word for word. And when he gets to Modim, I'm going to get up to Modim, and we're going to bow together. That works. And not just that. What if, Elon, for you, because you don't like that case. Here, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're so late that they're already in the Chazara. And now you see that he is starting Ritzeh. And you say, oh, if I start right now, my HaShem Sefilai Tiftach, while he's saying Ritzeh, so then by the time I'm ending Magen Avraham, he's going to be up to Modim. And you can time it out that way. You just want to save yourself an extra 10 seconds, 15. You already missed Kedushah, I know. But that's one opinion. Okay, okay. Yeah, it's mincha. It's mincha. This is it. This is it. You got to pray now. No, you're right. You're saying you're correct. You're saying you should go to a minyan. If I had $1 for everyone, okay, my minyan starts at 9:30 on Shabbat. All right, for some reason. Okay, whatever. We'll stop there. Not everyone comes exactly at the time the minyan starts, and you can't say what's the point. They come when they come. The best is when there's an early minyan and a late minyan, and someone comes 9:30, but still they end up going. They say I have to be late to the early minyan. Like, that's not like, but okay, but whatever. Everyone has their own. That's a minhag. You follow the minhag. Okay, so very good. Now, and then one more thing, Richard, which is a very good point. You're not allowed to bow in other parts of the Amidah. Okay, but what happens if I don't say anything? In the middle of the Amidah, am I allowed to Rafa'inu HaShem? In other words, to just don't say anything and bow. And the answer is yes. You're not allowed to bow for the other berachot, or you're not allowed to bow for other parts of the prayer. But if you just pause in the middle of your prayer and bow, you're even allowed to do that, which is going to be a very important thing. That this is a very critical point that Richard, you're bringing up, is that once you tell me that the whole issue is optics, then you don't have a much of a problem. You really can start your Amidah whenever you want, so long as you just make sure that when he's saying Modim, you bow. And there's going to be some issues, and that this is not the ideal, but this really the way this is important to know, and we're going to see Shulchan Aruch, because I think, let me just see where we're up to in the Gemara. Let me do one more thing, then we're going to see Shulchan Aruch. Okay, very good point. The discussion that we just had is very critical for the halacha. Okay, let's keep going. Udekule alma mihat mifsak la pasik. Okay, but everyone agrees that one may not interrupt his prayer in order to respond to Kedushah, right? So we have a machloket about Nagdishah. Here, let's read this. Both Rav Huna and Rav Yehoshua and Levi agree, at least, that an individual ought not interrupt his private Shemona Esrei to respond to Kedushah and Modim segments recited aloud by the prayer leader. What we're seeing here is that you might be allowed to, but both of them will agree that this shouldn't be your ideal. This concept of in the middle, and this is going back to like what Tomer brought up. If I'm in the middle of my Amidah, and the Chazan is up to Nagdishah, what we're seeing now is you ideally are not saying anything. You are not responding. What do? You pause and listen. They both agree that you do not interrupt your prayer and say Nagdishah. Okay? Put the motions aside, because the motions are not required. Modim, the motions are required. Nagdishah, the motions are not required. But that's a good point. But look what the Gemara is going to take it a step further. Ibayalo. So once you tell me that they both agree that you do not respond to Nagdishah, so I'm in the middle of my prayer, I hear Nagdishah, don't respond. What about if they're saying Kaddish and they say do I answer that? Do I answer to Yehei Shemei Rabbah? I'm saying here that you do not answer to Nagdishah. What about Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach of Kaddish? Ki ata Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Amar, he told us the following: Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, Talmidei Rabbi Yochanan Amri, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, who were the students of Rabbi Yochanan, they both taught Lakol en mafsikin. You do not interrupt your Amidah for anything, Hutz min Yehei Shemo Agadol Mevarach, except for Yehei Shemei Rabbah, which means you do not interrupt your prayer for anything except for Yehei Shemei Rabbah. You do interrupt. She'afilu osek ma'aseh merkava, even if you are involved in ma'aseh merkava, which is the most lofty divine chariot sections of Yechezkel that are talking about creation and about talking about Ribono Shel Olam and Revelations, and like the most lofty, there's nothing in the world that you should say that I'm not going to answer Yehi Shemir Rabba Mevarach. Even if you're involved with Maaseh Merkava, you should interrupt that to answer Yehi Shemir Rabba Mevarach. Posek. You stop what you're doing and answer Yehi Shemir Rabba. That's how important Yehi Shemir Rabba is. But the Gemara, just as a buzzkill, tells us these next three words. But the halakha is not like that. Okay? For 1 second, we were like, Kaddish is so important that there's nothing in the world will stop you. You have to, no matter what you're involved with, you have to drop it, even if you're involved with the most mysticism, even if you're in Shamaim with your head, doesn't matter. Bring yourself back to answer Yesh Rabba. That's not the halacha is, which means if you're in the Amidah, you do not interrupt your Amidah for Yesh Rabba Mevarach. You do not. Okay? We have a lot of halachot to discuss now. Okay? Now, let's see. Let's go to Shulchan Aruch. Siman Kuf Dalet. Sorry, Kuf Tet. 109. All right? Look at the screen. We're going to learn some halakha. I think we did this last year also. Last year we learned the whole entire Siman Kuf Zayin. 107 we learned the whole thing. We'll do this. Maybe we won't do the whole thing, but we'll do it. Okay? It's very important halachot. Hanichnas lebet knesset. Someone enters the kanisa. Umatzah sibur shemitpalelim, and you see that the sibur is already praying. Okay? This is exactly our case. Okay? Im yachol hatchil veligmor. If you can start and finish your tefillah, kodem sheyazgia shaliach sibur lekedusha, before the shaliach sibur gets up to kedusha, meaning nadishach, or lekadish, or up to kaddish, before he gets up to the kaddish, itpalel. Then you're allowed to pray. Okay, so how is it both? Okay, exactly. Let's say, so now what we're saying is that, okay, if they're all in the middle of praying, so my calculation has to be, can I start and be done before he gets up to Nagdishach? Okay? But let's say they already finished praying. They already said Nagdishach. I'm like really late. They're in the middle of the Chazara. They're up to Sim Shalom Tuvar. Should I just start the second? Adam at Alati's point, like, why are you even here? Like, what are you doing here? Just go home. But fine, you're here already. Can I start now, or should I wait until I hear Kaddish? So that's what Shulchan Aruch is saying, is that if you're not going to be done before he gets up to Kaddish, then don't start yet. What are you starting right now in the middle of Sim Shalom? You're starting right now. So you're completely disconnected from this minyan. At least answer Kaddish and then pray afterwards. You're not praying with the minyan anyway. Okay. V'im lav, if you're not going to be able to get up to there, Ali Yitpalel. Sorry, I skipped the Ramah, Ashkenazi opinion. V'hu adin, amen deha'el kadosh. He says also, not just Nagdishach, but right before Nagdishach, there's the bracha of amen. Sorry, it's right after Nagdishach. He says that's part of it also. You have to answer that also, but that's after Nagdishach already. V'shomea tefillah dinan k'kadish u'kedisha. V'shomea tefillah dinan k'kadish u'kedisha. Okay, fine. V'im lav al yitbalel. But if you are not going to, if your calculation is you're not going to be done with your prayer before they get up to Nagdishach, then don't pray. Here's the exception, Adam. Im en hasha'a overet. If the time is not running out, if it's not the latest time to pray. Imagine I told you the latest time to pray mincha, in this whole example I've been telling you, minyan is at 6:30. Let's say sunset is at 6:31, right? So now it's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get, it's like, the time is up. Like you have to start. You had in your last couple of seconds to start before the sun sets, or even after the sun sets, the last couple of minutes of Ben Hashmashot, there are certain times where you have to override this entire calculation. Why? Because the sun is setting. Or it's the latest time for Shacharit, and I need to pray. Or the sun is rising, and it's the latest time for Arvit. I gotta go. Okay? Im en hasha'a overet. V'im nichnas achar Kedushah. Okay? Ilan, this is for your case. Let's say you entered after they had already said their Kedushah. So they're already in the middle of the Chazara. Im yachol lehatchil veligmor. If at that point you can start and finish. Kodem sheyagia shliach tzibur lemodim. If you're in the middle, he's in the middle of the Chazara. If you know, let's say he's very slow. So you could start and be done before he gets up to the Modim, then you could start. Yitpalel, ve'im lav, al yitpalel. If not, wait for the Modim prayer. Okay? V'hu adin. The same rule applies. This is extra. Im yachol lehagia lemodim. If you can get up to your own Modim, not that you have to be done with the entire prayer, but if you can time it out, this is Richard's calculation. If I could time it out to be up to my own Modim, or to one of the other places that you're bowing, which is the first bracha. So this is the situation of it's Ritzeh. Ritzeh until Modim. If I start HaShem Sefalai Tiftach, I know I could bow when he's doing Modim. So I know that I could have a fungibility of my bows. That's what he's saying here. If you don't understand what that means, I'm sorry for complicating things, but it just means using one bow in place of the other. So this is what Shulchan Aruch is saying: is v'hu adin im yachol lahagia lemodim or laachat me'abrachot sheshochim bahem kisheyagia shliach tzibur lemodim yitvalel. If I can get up to one of my bows when the Chazan is getting up to the Modim bow, then go ahead and pray. You see here that you are allowed to use a different bow. V'im tzarich lehatchil kedei lismoch geula letfilah v'nizdamen lo. Okay. Now, ואם צריך להתחיל כדי לסמוך גאולה לתפילה ונזדמן לו שמגיע שליח ציבור למודים ושוב באחת מהברכות. Now let's say just how it worked out, you had to start. You tried to time things out and you failed. Okay? You just like completely miscalculated. All of a sudden you saw one guy Sidur, right? You're starting right now and you looked at like the first guy Sidur and you saw that he's on the first page. You're like, oh, I have plenty of time. But meanwhile, this guy was, you then realize after you started that the guy was on his phone. You're like, hey, Baba, I looked at this guy Sidur. So let's say you just completely miscalculated, okay? If it worked out, he actually gives another reason why, but it turns out, let's say the Shliach Tzibur gets up to Modim, and I'm in the middle of one of my brachot. I'm up to Rifa'enu, that example that I gave. I'm in the middle of Rifa'enu, because I miscalculated. Yishche imo, you can bow with him. But not if you're at the beginning of the bracha or at the end of the bracha. Because the only two brachot that we bow at the beginning and the end is avot, which is bracha number 1, and modim. So if you're in the middle of any other bracha, you could just bow. You could just bow where you are. So this way you have the optics. So this is exactly what we discussed. That if you're in the middle of doing the Chazara and you miscalculated and he gets up to Modim, what should you do? Go ahead and bow, unless you're at the beginning or the end of a bracha. Because those you cannot bow because you only bow at the beginning and the end of Modim and Avot, which is the first bracha. Okay, good? You guys calculate? Yeah, go ahead.
Just one clear, if you're reading and they're about to start an Amidah, you're supposed to just stay quiet during that if you're in the middle of your silent Amidah?
Very
I wanna
good.
Make sure I got the rules.
Correct. Yeah, that's not what we said here, but that's exactly what we said in the previous thing, and we're going to see that in halacha right now.
And if they get up to Modim while you're still in the middle of silent, as long as it's not for another bracha, if you're in the middle of something, you bow.
You got it.
and
You just bow your body and you resume your own prayer. Very good. Okay, Joey gave us a nice summary. I'm in the middle of my Amidah. Chazan is up to Nakdishah. What do? You just quiet, listen, stop, listen to his prayer. That's it. Hopefully he has you in mind and you're fulfilling your obligation. Shomea ke'oneh. I'm listening and I fulfill my obligation. What about Modim? Modim is more of an optics thing. So what do? You bow. Wherever you're up to, you bow. Unless, as Joey said, if you're at the beginning or the end of a bracha. If you're at the beginning and the end of a bracha, you cannot. So don't. Why? Because the beginning and end bows are restricted to the first bracha, Magen Avraham, and Modim. So again, that you should be able to calculate that. So don't finish the bracha. Just pause for a second. Yeah.
Like the Chazan's in the middle of Retzeh, you're in the middle of bracha, like stop for a second.
Exactly. You see how you know that he's in the middle of Ritzeh, you know in 15 seconds he's going to be bowing for Modim, so don't get to the end of a bracha and start really slow it out a little bit or pause a little bit, take a pause, take a thing, so that this way you could bow in the middle of the bracha when you're not saying any words, and then you'll be able to bow together with them. Yeah, very good. Good. This is the first halacha. Wow. Second halacha. We did not see this in the Gemara, but it's extremely important. Okay? Very important. Rama, you came at the right time. Because we were talking tonight about someone coming late for tefillah. And if he comes late for tefillah, what exactly he's supposed to do, about the order, about nakdishach, about modim. This is a very important halacha. It's not something we saw in the Gemara. Okay? Im matchil להתפלל, im shliach tzibur. Let's say you are going to start your Amidah together with the Chazan. So for Modim, what do? You bow with him, because you say you're Modim, he says his Modim, everyone's happy. But what about Nagdishach? Remember what I told you? Are you allowed to say Nagdishach during your own prayer? We said you're not allowed to. What, Joey, what are you supposed to do if you're in the middle of your prayer and you get up to Nagdishach?
Silent.
Yes.
Stop.
You just stop and listen. Okay? All right? If you're in the middle of your individual prayer and the Chazan is saying it, you stop and listen. You cannot say Nagdishach during your individual prayer. Unless you get up to it at the same time as him. Okay? No. Let's see Shulchan Aruch. That's something else. Wait, what? Hold on. Don't confuse me with Ashkenazim right now, okay? Hold on a second. We'll get up to Ashkenazim after we finish Shulchan Aruch. If you pray the Amidah together with the Chazan, which means you're starting HaShem Tiftach at the same time. When you get up to Nagdishach together with the Chazan, because you're doing it word for word, Yomar imo mila b'mila kol Kedushah. You can say it together with him, word by word, the entire Kedushah. Kemo she'u omer. Just as he said, Nagdishach, Menarisach, Kenamsiach, Tzupei Kodesh, Am Shalashim, word for word, beginning to end, you could say everything as long as you're saying it together with him. V'chen yomar imo mila b'mila berkat ha'el HaKadosh. And then you continue. You say the next bracha, ha'el HaKadosh, Ata HaKadosh, V'shucha HaKadosh, U'kdoshim b'chol yom v'seh, Baruch HaShem, ha'el HaKadosh, Ata Chonen. You say it word for word from him. The bracha ha'el HaKadosh, U'berkat shomei tefillah, also shomei tefillah, v'gam yichaven. And then keep going. Kishiyagia shliach tzibur lemodim, yagia gam hu lemodim. Time it out that when he gets up to modim, you're up to modim. Why? At this point, so that you bow in unison. Or la'atov shemcha ulchana eleodot. Or the end of modim. Basically, at one point, you're allowed to speed up a little bit and get to the end of your modim for the beginning of his modim. Because if you get to the end of your modim, you're going to be bowing. He does the beginning of his modim, which is okay. Fungibility of bows. Okay? One second, Igal, I'll come to you. Igal, Ilan, we have some questions here. And something about Ashkenazim, we're going to get up to them also. Just 1 second. Aval, this is the father of the Ashkenazim, the Ramah, Moshe Isulis. Aval lechatchila lo yatchil ad achar she'amar Kedushah v'ha'el HaKadosh. But he says this is not the way you should do it. The best thing to do is wait for them to do Kedushah, Nagdishach, and then you start afterwards. But if you have to start because the time is finishing, because the sun is setting, or because you want to connect it to your Shema and you finished your Shema, so you have to start, so then this is the rule. You could start your Amidah together with him. Why start your Amidah together with him? Because then, if you say word for word, then you could say Nakdishach together with him, and you can bow for Modim with him. Okay, so you have Ilan, then Igal. Yes, question.
If you don't have time or you want to do fast minyan, you do everyone's sitting together.
Oh, this is something else. The Ashkenazim do something different. The Ashkenazim follow the Ramah here. Oh, okay. Very good. Yeah, you're talking about the Chatzi Yelashi. Yeah, okay. Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to come up to that. Yes, Igal, question?
If you start at the same time as the Shaliach Tzibur, right now we were just reading that you should time it so you start everything together with the Modim and Shema Kolei. What if you just read fast enough that you'll finish before Chazan gets up to the Modim, and then you'll just bow like the rest of the Keilah?
Yeah.
Or is it telling you specifically that you shouldn't read fast and you should time everything to read it with the Chazan?
very good question. So now Igal is saying, what happens if like, okay, I can go at the right pace to say Nagdishach with him, then after we do Hayla Kadosh, I could just like, put myself into fast, what is it called? All performance gear, turbo mode, and then just go ahead and finish the whole thing. Can I do that? So I think the answer is what we're seeing is the only other restriction is Modim. Right, you want to be able to bow at Modim, and if you're going to be done before Modim, or if you can, Shulchan Aruch says that if you could do your later bow of Modim during the first one, then you're allowed to. The main thing is that at that point, what you don't want to do is not bow during Modim, and it sounds like you could go ahead and proceed. The only thing, I'm just going to be intellectually honest here. Yigal, my only concern with telling you this is, and maybe you could help me figure this out, Shulchan Aruch throws in two words here that throws me off. He says, after you say Nagdishach, it says, V'chen yomar imo milah b'milah birkat ha'el HaKadosh, u'birkat shomea tefillah. What? What was that? So now Shulchan Aruch here is saying that you have to say shomea tefillah together with the Chazan. So I have to look into it a little bit more, because if you're saying that I have to say shomea tefillah together with the Chazan, then the answer of your question is no. Right? You see that?
Yeah, it makes it sound like you should be reading with him and like you shouldn't go ahead.
Correct. Shomea Tefillah is like the last of the Bakashot, and it's saying from Ha'el HaKadosh through Shomea Tefillah, you should be saying it together with him, which means you should not go into turbo mode. You should say it together with him. I would like to see if there's some commentary. You know what? If not now, when? Let's see. Yeah. Commentary. See if I can get the Mishnah Berurah right here. Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah, Milah Milah. מילה במילה, פירוש יאמר עמו נקדש לדור ודור על הקדוש, ואחר כך יתפלל בפני עצמו, אם הוא יכול לסיים קודם שיגש לסיום שומע דור. Oh, look at that. So Mishnah Berurah says that you gotta be done before Shomea Tefillah. Okay? Okay, it works. So you were saying, what if I know I'm gonna be done before Modim? So Mishnah Berurah says, no, if you know you're going to be done before Shomea Tefillah, then you could go ahead, put yourself in turbo mode. It seems like for Shomea Tefillah, you have to be together with the Chazan. So if you can be together with him because you're done, then that's fine. If not, then go say it word for word with him.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay. I'm being honest with you, I don't know. This entire siman we didn't discuss in our Gemara, so I'm just going off when I'm looking at Shulchan Aruch. I have more learning to do. Sorry? Maybe it's right. Yeah, exactly. Like he's saying, like get yourself some buffer. You have to be up to him for Shomea Tefillah. I don't know. Sarich Iyun, something we have to look into for next week. Yes, question?
There's words that only the Chazan says. Do we say that too?
Okay, very good. So okay, there are certain words that you're saying that we don't necessarily say. Like what? Okay. Yeah. I wasn't trying to. Okay, Lamatam Shabachim Yomerim. Okay, so you said Nagdishach and Arisach, Kinam Tzotzot Begadosh, Sham Shadim Kedushah, and Adian Yach, Viraz Azevamar, Kadosh, Lamatam Shabachim Yomerim. And then, all right, so there's like three words in the middle that he says it's a call for us to respond. So you're saying, do you say those? The answer is Shulchan Aruch tells us yes, Milah be Milah. Word for word, let me read to you exactly what he says. Milah milah, kol ha-Kedushah kemo shehu omer, which means word for word, the entire Kedushah, just as he says. So yes, you say everything, including that as well, because you're interrupting your prayer to follow him. So you should be saying everything that he's saying, word for word. And by the way, even if you're in your own Kedushah, even if you're not in the middle of your own Amidah, you could say all of those words. Those are things that we all say anyway. It's even though the Chazan is the one saying it and we're responding, you can and should be saying those words as well. Yes.
There's some nuances as towards the end of the Amidah, where they're starting, you haven't finished yet. Where if you get to not at the end, you're not Oseh Shalom, you're at Sim Shalom, you finish the bracha Sim Shalom, and you're at Elohai Netzor. So you could still, even though you're in the middle of Lachash, you could still respond to Nakdishah, but then it depends on where you are in line Netzor, right?
Okay, very good. Rama is asking a very good question. So Rama, let's pull up the Siddur so that we could all be on the same page and talk about this. So before we do the exceptions, let's just quickly do a recap of the rules. Okay, you're in the middle of your Amidah. The Chazan gets up to Nagdishah. What do? Stop and you listen. Shomea ke'oneh. There's one exception where you can say it together with him. What is that exception? Is that what you said? If you're saying word for word from the beginning of Amidah together with him and you get up to it together with him, then you're allowed to say it. Okay? Which brings me to Ilan's point. Ilan asked a good question. Let's say you go to a minyan where they don't have a chazara. They only do one Amidah. Okay? Some people call it chetzi. Some places call it yelahashi. It means one lachash. Right? You know what I'm talking about? Some minyanim for mincha, office minyans, generally, or let's say it's getting very late. So we're not going to do a silent prayer. The Chazan starts off with Adonai Sefadai Tiftach Ufiyagi Teratech. He goes right into it. What do you as the kahal do?
Very confusing.
Very confusing.
Some are saying it, some are waiting. It's a whole big mishmash.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. It doesn't have to be confusing it doesn't have to be so confusing. Essentially, there's two different halachot. There's two minhagim, rather. The way it's generally practiced, Sfaradim say it all together with the Chazan. We are part of a minyan. Oh, how am I allowed to say Nagdishach in the middle of my own prayer? We just learned that you're allowed to. If you say word for word together with the Chazan, you're allowed to. So there's no problem. You do not say Berachot Baruch Shemo and Amen because you're in the middle of your own prayer. So you're saying word for word together with whatever he says. He's not saying Berachot Baruch Shemo, so you don't say it. He's not saying Amen, so you don't say it. You say word for word, and that counts as a minyan. We just saw that. Shulchan Aruch said that. But there's some that say, no, look what Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah told us, that this isn't the ideal. The ideal is to wait until after Hayat HaKadosh, and then you start. So that's what many Ashkenazim do. They will say Berachot Baruch Shemo and Amen. They won't start their prayer. They'll let the Chazan get up to Nagdishah, and then they'll start.
Nobody will catch up. Because by the time they're done, you're saying Alina, you're still in the middle of saying like the third bracha.
Okay, so in general, the practice of Sfaradim is we start together with the Chazan. Ashkenazim is they wait until after Kedushah, as we just saw the difference between Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. But both are kasher. Okay, if let's say you walk in late, then you don't try to start your HaShem Tiftach and try to rush to get up to Nagdishah. It's okay to answer Amen, say Nagdishah, and then start your Amidah. This happens sometimes. There's a minyan for mincha that they only do one chazara. They're only doing one. And you walk in when he already started. So you can't start together with him. So what do? You wait until Nagdishah, Ha'el HaKadosh, Amen, and then you start your HaShem Tiftach. All right, but I'm going to miss Modim. In that situation, there's no Modim. Right? If there's only one lachash, there's no modim. So you don't have the concern of missing it. If you might miss Kaddish, which we spoke about, might be an issue. So I was going to find something. What was I looking for? Siddur? Oh, Amidah. Yes, question?
Some people, I think, go to and they start ushering and they say quickly and they finish and then they just wait for the Kaddish to start and then they start saying Shemona Esrei immediately after the Chazan says Kaddish to start. Then what do? Do they just stay silent even though?
Sorry, I'm going to be honest, I lost your question. Hold on. You're in the middle of a minyan, and what happened?
Someone hears the Chazan say Kaddish to start Shemona Esrei, and then he starts saying Shemona Esrei himself as if it isn't yet Lahashi.
He started early? Oh.
Like he doesn't know that the Chazan's about to start and say Amen.
Okay.
He just starts praying himself as if like he has the kavanah that okay, I'm going to say it, and then the Chazan's going to repeat himself, but then the Chazan immediately starts praying.
Okay.
What does he do?
Slow down. You be word for word with him. You're saying you just said the word Adonai Sefadai Tiftach. You said those words maybe like 3 seconds before him or something. Yeah. So just slow down. That's fine. If you time it out, even if you start a little bit before. You time it out that you get up to Nagdishach at the same time as him, then you could answer Nagdishach. Okay, now this question is for this is the Shem Yichud. How do I get to the Shem? Okay, here we go. This question is for Rama. You know what? I will say that it's not even part of our Gemara tonight, but I knew Rama was coming, So I prepared this halacha. Look at okay, look at Siman Kuf Daled. Okay, this is Siman Kuf Daled. Seif Zayin. Ibrahim, take your picture. You take a picture of me or the screen? Which one? Both? Oh. Eno posek. You do not interrupt your Amidah, your personal Amidah. Lo lekadish, not for Kaddish, which means not for Yehoshua Rabbah, even though some rabbis in the Gemara that are recorded that say they do. You do not interrupt your Amidah for Kaddish. Lo lekdusha, not for Kedushah either. Ela yishtok, you should be quiet. V'yichaven l'ma she'omer hashaliach tzibur. Listen and have kavanah to what the Chazan says. And it's as though you're saying it. You don't say it. You just stop, drop, and roll with what he says. But you do not say anything. You just listen to it. And you get roll in Shamayim with the same zechut. Okay? Now, this is the seif for Rama. Achar shesiyem yudchet berachot. When you're done with the yudchet berachot, podem Elohai netzor. Meaning, you said that you finished the bracha of Sim Shalom, Berachot HaShem. How does the end of Sim Shalom go? Amen. And now what happened? Kodem Elohai Netzor, Yachol la'anot Kedushah v'Kadish u'barechu. Shulchan Aruch tells us that here is a situation where, let's look at the screen. I'm going to show you the Sidur. If I am over here, I'm just going to take a picture. I cannot deny anything. They're all of Rama's pictures. Okay, here. This spot right over here. If I am, after I say Yilaratzon. So, you know what? Actually, let's do it like this. Oh, I have such a good idea. How do I clear the annotation? Okay, clear all my drawings. Okay, here we go. Stop. Okay. If I am anywhere, let me get the red now. Now we got this over here. Up until here, all things are forbidden. X. From this point on, give me a green one. From this point on, check. I'm allowed to respond to, what does Shulchan Aruch tell us? Kaddish, Kedushah, and Barechu. Okay? And what we're going to say is, when we say Kaddish, it's the 5 amens of Kaddish. Amen. It's the first 5 Kaddishes. And according to Rav Yosef, when you say Amen, you could also answer Men Yehoshua Rabbah Mevarach La'ala Me'amaya Yitbarach. Rav Yosef says stop there, because normally you're supposed to keep going until you have to go through all the way 28 words you have to say. But in this situation, when you're in the middle of your Amidah in Elokai Netzor, you're allowed to answer Nakdishach by saying Kadosh, 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 Baruch Kivod Hashem Mekomo. You're allowed to answer Baruchu. You're allowed to answer the 5 amens of Kaddish. What is it? You do not say the full Nakdishach. Correct. You only say Kadosh, 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 and Baruch Kivod Hashem Mekomo. Yeah, yes.
Like stop and answer Amen, or can I continue like Elohim Amen, and then like to myself?
Say wait. Say it again.
So saying Kedushah, do I say when I'm saying Elohim like do I stop it, like got to stop and say Amen, or can I continue like in the middle?
No. You should stop. You stop. You listen. So you do your same stop, drop, and roll. But this time, when you say Nagdishach, when you stop, dropped, you, in addition to just rolling with what he says, you also say Kadosh, 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 Adonai Sevot Melech Haaretz Kavado. Imloch Baruch Kivod Hashem Mekamo. I could say it hundreds of times, but still, when you need it, you forget. Baruch Kivod Hashem Mekamo, and that's it. Yes.
Actually, in the middle, you start with God, the miracle starting. Can you try to start your Tefillah and like start calculating maybe do like use kavanah and speed up your or should you also wait and see if you and say that?
If what's the situation?
Father starting exactly when you get to the minyan, or in the middle, if you wait, I'll wait till I say the Kedushah to everyone, and then say my tefillah.
Very good. So very good. So Elon is saying is like, look, I don't like rushing. There's too much anxiety. Just leave me alone for a second. I came here to pray to Hashem, and you're telling me I just want to pray. Okay, so now you're saying is, can I just wait and pray b'chavana, and instead of rushing, I'll answer Nakdishach, and then I'll go ahead and pray at my own pace? The answer is, the answer is yes. The only thing that you need to be aware of is what? Modim. That you should not be a situation where the kahal is saying Modim and I'm not bowing. But we already gave you a simple solution to that. This is what Shulchan Aruch said, that if you're in a situation that you time it out, that it doesn't work out, what do? Wherever you're up to, as long as it's not the beginning of a bracha or the end of a bracha, just stop, bow, and now no one looks at you and says that, oh, he's not bowing. No one looks at you that way. By the way, when was the last time you went to Kanisa, someone didn't bow Modim and you said this guy doesn't believe in God? I think that things used to be different. Now, the last thing I'm doing during Modim is looking around, seeing whose head is up. Usually what's happening, Modim, is half the minyan is sitting down on their phones, unfortunately. And like, if anything, that was much worse, no? This guy is in his Amidah, we say, oh, he doesn't believe in God. This guy is playing, I don't know, Tetris on his phone, or he's looking up some stocks or something, and you say, no, he's just busy. All right, whatever. But the world has probably changed a little bit. But it used to be that everyone is bowing during Modim, everyone is bowing to Hashem, and you're standing there upright in your Amidah. It doesn't look right. So, Ilan, to your point, if I feel like this, I'm not going to pray with kavanah. I want to go slow. I want to go at my pace. Am I allowed to? I would venture to say that you should do that. To have kavanah 100%. What is this? It's not a game you're trying to rush, but be aware of the modim that you need to bow when they're saying it, so it doesn't look like you're being kofer. Yes. Okay, Kohanim, there's a lot of discussion about what you're supposed to do. If you're saying word for word with the Chazan, then for a Kohanim, you just stop. And you could even answer the same way that you're allowed to answer Kedushah. You're allowed to say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. If you're saying word for him, you're also allowed to answer Amen of the Berachot Kohanim. But other places I've seen that if you're in the middle of your Amidah Kohanim, you're allowed to just keep going. Yeah, if you're in the middle of your prayer, let's say you're in the middle of Sim Shalom, you're already in the middle of Sim Shalom and he's up to the Kohanim, you're allowed to keep going. You're allowed to keep going and finish your prayer during the Kohanim. Yeah. You're allowed to. The blessing for you works whether you're praying your Amidah or not. Okay, any other questions? You know what? Tonight I was thinking we're going to cover a lot more Gemara. We didn't do that much Gemara tonight. Relatively speaking, we probably did half an Amud. It's a slow pace. But this is what comes with Masechet Berachot, right? These are extremely practical discussions. There's a lot more to discuss. I actually have a grid. I didn't prepare it. Okay, there's a chart in the back of many Sidurim that says what you're allowed to respond to depending on where you are. So if you're in the middle of the Amidah, you're not allowed to respond to anything. Unless you're up to Nagdishach and the Chazan is up to Nagdishach, then you are allowed to respond to it. If you're before the first Yilar Hatzon, you can't respond to anything. But if you're after the first Yilar Hatzon, before the second Yilar Hatzon, but look at the screen, there's two Yilar Hatzons. Rama, you know this, right? Of course you know this. There's two. Look at the screen. Just make it like this. There's one over here. And there's one over here. And after this one, after the second one, you're allowed to say everything. Everything you're allowed to respond to. Even the amens after the first fact. Even you're allowed to say those words also. But during this area, you're not allowed to answer to all of the other brachot. You're only allowed to answer of Kadosh and Baruch. You're only allowed to answer Baruch Hu. You're only allowed to answer the 5 amens of Kaddish up until Yitbarach. After that, you're allowed to go all the way. So there's a lot of halachot here. There's got to be a grid. Anyone have this chart? You know what I'm talking about or no? There's some sidurs that in the back, they have a very nice chart that says, if you're up to here, this is what you're allowed to answer. If you're up to here, this is what you're allowed to answer. I've seen it in the R Scroll one. I've seen it in some other ones. Maybe for one of the upcoming classes, we could get like a table and we could talk about it. All right, good. So again, we didn't cover that much Gemara, but we covered a lot of important halachot. Okay, question. What is the source from the Torah of a minyan being 10 people? It's a good question. Yes. Double gezerah shava. Nikdashti betoch. Very good. Betoch ha'edah. Edah talking about the meraglim. Boom. I saw you going like this. What were you doing? When you were going like this, what were you doing? The Venn diagram. There you go. That's why I make it. I make it so that you could do this. When I saw you doing this, I was like, we think alike. That's it. That's how I thought about it also until I put it down on paper. Very good. So that's how you have this. You have a source of a minyan. If I ask you, the source of a minyan being 10 people, where is it from? Okay, you have to make yourself sound smart, even if you got like these things. When you know it, you all know it. But when I say it's like, whoa, holy smokes! How do you learn that?
Can we also say Megillah Chaf Gimel Gamud Bet?
Yeah, there you go. You got Megillah Chaf Gimel Amud Bet is correct. Very good. Okay, so that's one question we talked about tonight. The next question we talked about is if you come late to a Bet Knesset and they already started praying, do I start my prayer? Depends who you ask is correct. The answer is you're going to need to do some calculations. Can you finish your tefillah before you get up to now what is the blank? Well, according to Rav Huna, it's Modim. Why? Because he wants you to bow. But this is where Rabbeinu Tam or the Tosafot tells us is Rabbeinu Tam. It's Rabbeinu Tam. He would say the fungibility of the bows. You could also do one of the other bows. So you don't really have to be done by then. It's just that you have to be able to bow by then. That's one. Or according to Rav Huna and Levi, if I could finish my prayer before Nagdisha, then I could go ahead and start. If not, then don't start. Okay? Now, what happens if I'm able to time it out together with him? You're starting and read together. This happens, I'm going to end off with this. This happens very often. Elon, to your point. Very often, I come to a minyan, 10, 15 minutes late. And when the Chazan is starting HaShem Sefilai Tiftach, I'm starting my Berachot Kriyat Shema. And R Yehoshua, okay? Now, what ends up happening is, I'm wrapping up Berachot Emet V'Yatziv V'Nachon V'Ke'am V'Yashar. I stand up, Shirach HaShatz V'Chol Gelim Shirach Do'asfat Yam. Yachad, I'm about to start, I'm up to the Amidah, and I see the Chazan takes 3 steps back. So what do you do in that situation? You get what I'm saying? It's the Shacharit. I am finishing my Berachot Kriyat Shema, which means I'm going to start my Amidah soon, and I see the Chazan is finishing his Amidah, and he's going to start his Chazarat soon. What do you do in this situation? Very good. It's pray. You start it out that you say when he says HaShem Sefilai Tiftach, you say it together with him. And if your Chazan is seasoned enough and he knows the halachot, all you got to do is make some eye contact with him and says, you know, I'm coming together with you. So that this way he doesn't all of a sudden like, bro, I'm trying to catch up with you. So sometimes, like I see a Chazan that I know, I just go like this, and he says, I got you. And then he says, HaShem Sefilai Tiftach. I'm like, come on, and I'm not that slow. But then you say HaShem Sefilai Tiftach together with him, and then you say Nakdishach word for word. And as we just saw, at that point, do you put your foot on the gas, pedal to the metal, and try to finish before he gets up to something? And we saw in Shulchan Aruch is that yes, if you could be done before they get up to Shema Kolenu. It seems like for Shema Kolenu, you want to be done with your prayer. If you could be done with your Shema Kolenu before, then go ahead, put your pedal on the metal, finish, then you're done by Shema Kolenu and you're Modim. If not, then just say word for word together with him all the way through. Yes, last question.
Did you start saying Shema Kolenu or before he says the end?
I don't know. You got me. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. This Shema Kolenu thing is I have to research it more. What exactly is the reason behind it? Your question, Andrew's question is it the beginning of Shema Kolenu or the end of Shema Kolenu? I would imagine the end of Shema Kolenu, but I'm not sure. Shomea tefillah. Shomea tefillah is the last two. Oh yeah, it says Shomea tefillah. Last two words. Okay, yes. Oh, okay. Okay, it's a very good question. This goes back to that chart. So now you're asking, at what point can I say Nagdishach? What if they're in the middle? What if I'm in the middle of saying Shema Yisrael? Can I answer Kadosh? Can I answer Berachot? Can I answer Yeshua Rabbah? If I'm in the middle of Pesukei Zimra, what happens if I have to Baruch Shamar? What if I'm in the middle of Yishtabach? This is where that chart is very helpful, and that's a lot more than the scope of our Gemara. But I think I could find the chart. I can find the chart, and Be'ezras Hashem, maybe I'll send it to the chat, or maybe the next year we'll just go through it quickly. Yeah. It's a very good one. There's some charts that are overly complicated, but some that I've seen that are very clear and clean, and hopefully we could find something. Okay? All right, Azak Baruch, have a great week, everyone. See you next week.
Azak Baruch. Thank you, Rabbi.